Well, thank you, Daniel, for the opportunity.
Dude, you know what? Let me give you a high five. I haven't seen you in hella years.
Decades,
right?
Yeah.
Slammin Sam. Like I was telling you, like the last time I saw you, you were promoting that Always on My Mind. And you know what? I just recently found Always on My Mind, like the Alvin Dia, like she had her albums on like all the platforms and stuff, and Always on My Mind's on there. But man, you've been involved with like Raquel, Cynthia, George Lamont, Maya, Little Susie, like Two Live Crew, like I'm really excited that you're one of my first interviews, like one of the guys that helped create the revival of freestyle in the 90s, you know. So thank you for joining us here on the Freestyle channel.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, and yeah, it's been a very blessed ride in terms of being able to have these opportunities back in the heyday and to talk about it and to kind of reflect on all the great works that I've done throughout the years.
Yeah. I guess the record that did break the name Slammin Sam into the scene, that was the Hard to Get by the S Factor, right? That was the one that kind of set the tone of everything that came after.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say that was one of the primary tracks that really blossomed my brand at that time. I had worked with Randy Taylor Weber on the Josette project.
Yeah.
Props out to Randy. And through that experience, I was able to put together my brand when it came down to producing and also remixing music. And the Hard to Get one was the one that really broke through, not only on a mix show level, but on a very wide rotation on various radio stations throughout the US and around the world. So that was a very fortunate project of mine.
And that one's actually after In a Dream, right?
Actually, that came before.
It did come before.
Yeah, everything was kind of like in between a very short period of time. I would say between 1995 and 1999, there were so many projects, Daniel, and I lose track because sometimes I would go online and I would just randomly search myself just to see what comes up. And I said, oh my goodness, I put together that track and it was just lost in the shuffle with everything that I was doing in between. So In a Dream came after, but I soon was polishing my engineering, my producing skills through that early portion of my career with the S Factor, Hard to Get tracks, and also the Get Ready track, which is my personal project. So all that developed my brand and my sound at that time, and next thing you know, it catapulted me for the next several years.
Yeah, I remember like it was like I remember like your name was on every single like single or 12-inch. Like there was always a Slammin Sam remix for like this period of time in the 90s when like all of a sudden you saw freestyle come out, and in the 90s, like most of all the freestyle was coming out of the Bay Area, you know, so or the one that was making it to the mainstream was coming out of the Bay Area.
Right. There was a lot of people responsible for that uprising when it came to this Bay Area freestyle sound, and I think to me, everyone contributed in their most creative way, whether it was songwriting, producing, showmanship when they do these performances. I think it was incredible. And I could name so many people that were involved, even before I started doing all the prime period of remixing and producing.
Right.
There were several producers and artists that I give props out for. And I don't want to mention any because I might leave someone out.
Right.
And then they'll be like, oh, Sam, how about me? And they know who they are. And they were very inspirational to me till this day. And I feel that without them, we wouldn't have that period of being able to do freestyle music the way we did it in the Bay Area, because it kind of set the tone for a lot of other producers and artists in different parts of the world.
Right. For a while, the Bay Area freestyle sound was being imitated. you know.
Yeah.
And they were imitating you. They were imitating Randy. They were imitating Noel, right? Glenn, like
Right.
all these Bay Area producers were
Yeah.
being, you know.
Yeah, and I think you're mentioning some real hot producer writers, but there's been also several more. And I believe that a lot of us, we kind of like inspire each other because you could stem with a producer over in Southern California,
Right.
DJ Juanito.
Right.
And he's the one that worked with Lena Santiago with the whole synth sound
Right,
that myself and others kind of emulated, but we kind of tweaked it to give it our own flavor when it came to our productions. But that's an example where we kind of like got inspired by, because it was a certain melody that we felt, hey, this is where it's going to be. And then it just skyrocketed from there.
Yeah. So going back to like the S Factor and Sharyn Maceren, Hard to Get, man, that song charted like on Billboard and like we did the whole nine, right?
Right.
What's the story behind that song? Like, how did you and Sharyn get together and say, hey, how did you guys select the beat, the song? How did you guys meet? Like, what was the creative process of, you know, meeting of the minds?
Right. Well, right off the bat, I met Sharyn, believe it or not, as a DJ for her 18th debut party.
Oh, what?
Yeah, so even before the whole music thing happened, we had built a friendship through my DJ services at that time. Right. It wasn't until a couple years later is when we met and decided, hey, let's go ahead and put together some music and see where it goes, because I'm putting together a studio. She's a great songwriter and keyboard player. Let's go ahead and just see what we could come up with. And the concept of Hard to Get was actually from her, and she was able to put down all the necessary ingredients that I was able to polish up, and we were able to put together a great song. As far as like the beat and so forth, it's just a mix-mosh of ideas.
Right.
If you listen to it, it's the final version of it is not the same one that was on a compilation that was released a few years prior, because there were things that I wanted to go ahead and change up because I felt that it still needed this, it still needed that. So the final rendering of Hard to Get that you're hearing was not the first one that we said, hey, we're gonna take it to radio and see what happens.
Is that first version available to listen on like YouTube or something? Like, it'd be crazy to find it.
If it's on there, it's not from me.
Okay.
But there's also a guitar version that I recorded with a good friend of mine. Shouts out to Bruce Doomlau. That was never an official release because there were some issues with the mixing. However, going back to Hard to Get and how the final version played out, it was something to where we were just listening to it and just needed to have different types of elements added. And if you hear it, you could tell there's a lot of things in there that make it what it is versus just a regular track you would hear and you would say, okay, they just put it together and they didn't really like do any revisions. When you hear Hard to Get, the final version, you could tell that there was a lot of love and work put into that.
When I hear Hard to Get, I hear like a break dance, up tempo dance, like hip hop beat. But man, it just comes in with like it starts off and it has like a little breakdown at the beginning, kind of like, I don't know what it's called, but it's like dramatic, and you hear all the energy building before the beat actually kicks in. It's pretty like, I don't know how to.
Yeah. Thank you for knowing the melodies and how that comes about, because you got to have a certain ear to kind of catch those things. But I give props out and inspiration from all the previous producers that put together freestyle music back in the 80s. And they're the ones that really inspired myself, Sharyn, and other producers to kind of take what they've done and make it our own in terms of style and choice of keys and melodies. So all the props goes out to them.
So what would you say? What would you say were some of the like the freestyle songs or artists that you were listening to or that inspired you? Like what? Like if you were to name just like 2 or 3, like what would you say? Hey, you know what? Slammin Sam was listening to this when he decided to get involved with music.
Well, obviously there's the Stevie B production from Glenn Gutierrez and Dagel.
Yeah.
There's also the Mantronics.
Oh, Mantronics.
Chep Nunez, rest in peace. That production inspired me. There's so many of them. Jelly Bean Benitez with his style and his ear when
Mirage and Dancing on the Fire.
Exactly. So those are just a few of the producers that come to mind that I've been inspired from. And if you give me like a stack of 12-inch records of freestyle, I'll tell you that's the one that made it work for me.
Yeah.
And till this day, I draw inspiration from that.
You know, speaking Jelly Bean Benitez, you know, like I was just like I told you, I spent a lot of time, like off camera, I told you, I spent a lot of time on Spotify.
Yeah.
Like every day I spent at least like 5 or 6 hours on Spotify.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So I'm like digging through the digital crates, right?
Yeah.
I'm usually looking for new stuff, but you know, you go back sometimes and listen to the classic, and I was just listening to like Dancing on the Fire and
India.
Mirage, by La India, right? Dude, you put that song on today and it sounds fresh. It still sounds like it could just come out right now.
Exactly. There's a saying that I have, and a lot of people in my community know this saying, is that if you don't like this song, there's something wrong with you. And I'll say that to certain particular songs because it's like, what about it that you don't like?
Right.
And I think that's the important thing, because when you have people, especially males,
right,
you're not gonna see a few that are gonna drive with their windows down playing Sweet Sensation.
Right.
But some do. And they'll be driving around in San Jose. You'll be at the intersection and they're blasting Lil Susie.
Yeah.
Loud. And these are like tough guys.
Right.
Because I think when it comes down to it, the music is important for your well-being and for your soul when it comes to enjoyment. Right. And if you could connect with that, it doesn't matter if it's a female singing or a male singer or just melodies. It's all about your enjoyment. And I think that's the fulfilling part of freestyle.
I will tell you this, since we were just bringing up India, right? I can't tell what the fuck she's saying on Mirage. Like, I can't, but it sounds dope as hell.
Yeah. I think that's the great thing about it, because you don't have to know.
Yeah.
You just have to kind of like interpret what they're saying. But nowadays you could go online and see the lyrics or whatever. But to me, as you grow up, and you believe it's being said this way, you want to stick to that.
Yeah, right.
Trust me, there's a lot of songs I'm like, I know it's saying it this way, but it's actually this way. No, I'm saying it, I believe it's this way.
Right. So, how did you, so In a Dream came out, then Hard to Get, right?
Well, Hard to Get, the final version.
The final version,
yeah.
Right.
It came out way like a couple years before In a Dream. Yeah.
How did you link up with Randy? Because Randy just released the new compilation this last week or a couple days ago.
Right.
And it has like the versions that were only available on the single and on the vinyl. He put them on digital, right?
That's cool.
Yeah. So, but how did you meet Randy? Like, how did you guys link up, start working together? Like, tell us that story of how the Galaxy Freestyle Records thing came about.
Right. Well, we actually met over at a club that I was DJing over in Walnut Creek.
Okay.
He just approached me, and some reason or another, he thought that I was doing like producing work, and I told him, hey, I'm still working on my studio. Let me get your number, and when I'm ready, I'll reach out to you and we could go ahead and give it a shot. And I believe that was like a year prior to us actually working with each other. He would come down from San Leandro every day to Pittsburgh, and we would work on tracks. And I was just in awe of his talent, being able to write, be able to produce, and arrange the music to where, hey, what we're doing here could be something special. And when it came down to the In the Dream project, it was something that he was doing repeatedly prior, with different singers, different groups that were putting together In a Dream. So there's a lot of revisions of In a Dream, way more than Hard to Get.
Right.
And when he decided to go one more shot with a singer named Josette, I felt that, hey, this is the one that's going to make it. And we put our heart and soul into the project, and next thing you know, it's all over radio and throughout the world.
Did you meet Randy before, or because I remember Randy telling the story about how he was originally going to give In a Dream to Yolanda, right? But then for some reason he decided to give Yolanda Forever and Josette In a Dream.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
Yeah. Were you there by that time? Were you already part of in the picture?
Well, as far as that decision making, that was all Randy. And I feel that his input when it came down to what needed to be done with the studio, that was his part when it came to me. But when it came down to what he wanted to do with the track for a particular singer, that was all what he wanted to do. And I know that the Yolanda In a Dream was sung. And
it was?
I believe so. And it was.
See that? I didn't know.
That was during the period of cassettes. And there was some manufacturing done of some earlier versions of In a Dream that Randy did.
Right.
Those are real gems. I'll tell you that right now. If someone has that, whether it's the Yolanda one or the Emotion and Motion In a Dream, those are gems.
He released the Emotion and Motion one on digital.
Yeah.
It has a rapper in it.
Yeah.
I don't know who the rapper is.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, this is actually, it's different than the one that came out, like the Josette one, the one that blew up, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds good, and it's very different, like sound wise, you know.
Yeah. And I'm glad that he did the release for all these tracks because, hey, who's going to release it, right? And I think having it in people's hands and this generation to be listening to it is just a gift from Randy to be able to say, hey, this is where all these tracks started, and we like you to have it and enjoy it. So props out to Randy for putting that out.
Yeah. So Randy released his album. You also released. I remember being at what was it called? Sam Goodies.
Yeah.
Sam Goodies.
Yeah. Warehouse.
Yeah.
Gosh, all those incredible music places that are no longer around.
Or was it called Goody Goodies? I don't remember.
Yeah.
It was called Goody Goodies?
No.
Yeah. Anyways, I remember being at the mall in San Jose.
Yeah.
Right? And seeing, like on the end caps, seeing your compilation. That had a girl like kind of like in the universe or something like that. It's like a blue black background.
Yeah.
And then there was a song with Rappin' Forte on it.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Yeah, it's funny because it's just through who you know that people kind of say, hey, here's a person you want to hook up with, and that's how it happened with Rappin' Forte. And it was just at a time where he was very available with his time, and we ended up doing a few tracks together. He did the remix of Get Ready where he does a rap, and he also did another song that was hip hop that he did for the album. That was In the Mix episode 3 that you're referring to. And episode 2 and 1 they sold out. Those two were like continuous mixtapes. There was no breaks. Episode 3 was one where it was separate tracks.
Yeah, it was an actual compilation.
Correct.
Yeah. And so that album comes out, and during that same time you were doing. I remember Cynthia, George Lamont, Little Susie, all these, the Maya. Like, how did that happen? Like, wow. Like, you know, like at the time, I think she was like on the top of the charts.
Right, right. It's just during that period, it was very blessed because I was working my butt off, doing my original stuff, but also people were realizing, and when I say people like A&R and other labels, they were realizing that a lot of the work that I was doing had a good mix show rotation.
Right.
And from that, they decided, hey, let's go ahead and give this guy a shot. So word spread around about what I was doing with the music productions and remixes. Thus, I was just getting work every week. And you're talking about, I have to work on my original productions. I have to work on these major label remixes and these independent artists that are coming, because I don't want to turn my back on them. They're from the local area in California. Right. I felt that it was my service for them to give them a chance. I wasn't going to say, well, because I'm too busy working on Maya or Two Live Crew, I can't work on your stuff. I always welcome more work. And I think that period was a very, very blessed period for me to continue just to knock out all these projects. And till this day, I just shake my head like, wow, I can't believe I did all that stuff.
Yeah, like once you sit, like once you pause and think about like the discography,
yeah,
like, oh wow, you know, it's.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I feel very blessed in having the opportunity. And people always ask me all the time, hey, are you going to still do music and stuff like that? I said, right now is not the time.
Right.
Right now I'm focusing on what I have going on here in Vegas. Yes, the whole DJ thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I'm going to roll with. And who knows what the future holds. I might be able to pick up that passion to get behind the keyboards and produce.
Would you say that one of the reasons that like the freestyle scene kind of disappeared like in the early 2000s, would you say that media and like radio and like had a lot to do with why producers and songwriters and artists kind of disappeared for a long? Now you're starting to see artists come out of nowhere again, right? Like, oh, that's cool, you know, you're back, etc. But what impact do you think? Because like Wild 94.9 or Wild 107 or whatever Wild you listen to, right?
Yeah.
They were like a major player on the West Coast of breaking records, and other stations across the country would pick up whatever Wild was playing.
Correct.
Right? But then Wild kind of like canceled mix shows, right, out of nowhere. I remember the mix shows going from 1 hour to like 30 minutes.
Right. I think there was an evolution of radio during that time where everything was a little bit more truncated in terms of how many mix shows were going to happen during a day. Music, how that's being kind of, I wouldn't say manipulated, but in a way they were making sure that the selection of music was in the best interest of corporate and best interest of the label versus breaking new music. And that was during the mid 2000s.
Right.
And I think that was the start of what we see now as the Spotify digital age, because now everything was based on streams and so forth. And I think several years after that is when everything kind of been turned over away from breaking records on a street level, and now it's just a corporate, more controlled playlist.
Yeah.
And that's just how radio kind of developed. And now everything is podcasts, everything is streaming. An 8-year-old is having their own Twitch show that they could go ahead and have their own playlist, and people are watching. And knowing this platform, everyone is going to say, hey, we need to find other avenues to kind of get new music from. And that's where everything kind of becomes more viable with the digital age, because anyone could be a YouTuber, a Twitch streamer, and break new music that regular radio cannot do because they're so corporate controlled now.
Yeah, radio doesn't really break records anymore, you know. It's usually done through social media and streaming and stuff like that.
Right. It's just the evolution now. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just one of the tools that we're able to work with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, being a former mix show DJ on the stations, I kind of miss that element of being able to get the record and saying, oh, look at this. It's so cool. Than playing it and just saying, I want to be the first one to play this vinyl.
I remember that, like in the 80s and the 90s, especially in the 90s, because when I really got involved, right? But I remember like being the DJ that broke a record was like a title. Like it was like an important thing.
Yeah.
If you were the DJ that broke a record, then every label was trying to reach out to you.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Say, hey, what'd you think about my song? You know?
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of that in the digital age. They try to email certain DJs and get their feedback and so forth.
Oh, it still happens?
To a certain degree, because the label, the A&R departments, they want to get your comments and see what you think. But it's just way different now. It's way different because there's so much music that comes out weekly.
Yeah.
And I remember reading a statistic regarding music being released on a weekly basis, and it's in the hundreds from one particular region of the US. Just imagine you combined all the regions in 1 week. People are just releasing every second.
Yeah, and not just the US, you have an entire world, right?
Exactly. And a lot of this music is never heard, and it's put underneath a whole bunch of other stuff, and who knows what quality stuff we're missing because everything is so saturated.
Yeah. So now you're focused more on the DJing, and you also do like a live stream?
Yes. Yeah. I do a weekly live stream on Twitch. It's basically playing all the stuff that we've been talking about and a lot more. It's on my channel. It is I Am Slammin, just like it sounds, and I stream every Tuesday. Sometimes I do different nights, but just because my schedule here in Vegas, it's so busy, I could only do Tuesdays from 6:30 Pacific time to 9. And it's pretty cool because not only do I stream, I have contests, raffles, I have interaction with the community through the chat. So there's a lot of that harmonious community feel when it comes to my Twitch channel, and I really enjoy it every week because I have no restrictions. I could play basically anything I want. I break some new music too that I've come across, just like you, which I plan on doing. So I'm excited about that each and every week to do the Twitch stream.
Very cool. So for anybody watching this, if you guys were in Las Vegas, Sam is a resident DJ at some of the casinos and clubs here in Vegas. You know, if you come to Vegas, because in a lot of Bay Area people come to Vegas either for the weekend or to move or whatever the reason you're coming out here for, you know, you should reach out to Sam, you know, and visit him at the club, you know, and buy him a drink or something.
Yeah, and follow me on all the socials at I Am Slammin, or just Google me and you'll see everything come up.
All right, Sam, thank you so much. And again, it's been a pleasure to see you after so many years.
Yes. Thank you, Daniel. You're the man. Appreciate it.